The right got exactly what they wanted. Make no mistake, they wanted this outcome. So they should be celebrating, but since they live in a state of perpetual victimhood, they're still crying. Here's Alina Habba upset over Justice Sotomayor's dissent. Take a look.
The dissent is a problem for our country because they're not looking inward. What we have right now in this country is that we have a political prosecution of a former president and the likely future president because the candidate is weak. And you're not allowed to do that. And they're right. But they need to remember one thing. When President Biden comes out of office and you look at what happened under his DOJ and the targeting of a president, official acts and presidential immunity come to play for him. Those are things that will protect and have protected all presidents, Democrats, Republicans. So for me to hear that it's a little mind-blowing, to be honest. While I respect, obviously, Justice Sotomayor's decision, I have to say, I'm concerned that that's actually what's currently happening in our administration.
Now, she wasn't the only one slamming the dissent. Here's conservative talk show host Mark Levin and what he had to say. The dissent sounds like Chuck Schumer. The dissent sounds like Bernie Sanders. There's no legal basis or constitutional basis for anything that they're saying. Above the law? Ask Donald Trump if he thinks he has been above the law. This has nothing to do with above the law. This is, do we want to live in a constitutional republic or not? On Fox, Kayleigh McEnany responded to the dissent's concerns by saying that we have checks and balances in the form of Congress's check on the executive all throughout the Constitution. Fox's Leah Kennedy Montgomery agreed, saying that Sotomayor's dissent was hysterical. Now, we have the part of the dissent that has them so upset for you. You be the judge. This is what she wrote. The president of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way, under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power? Immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon? Immune, 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 immune. Now, they're also mad at Justice Amy Coney Barrett for a disagreement she made in the majority, even though she still voted for the majority opinion. MAGA revolts over Amy Coney Barrett's Trump immunity disagreement, reports Raw Story. Their complaint is over her disagreement with one part of the ruling, which held that the Constitution prevents protected conduct from being introduced as evidence in a criminal prosecution against a former president. Yasmin, they were given the win. They got exactly what they wanted, and they're still crying. Why can't Republicans ever take a win here?
Yeah, I feel really bad for Justice Sotomayor because, it's how horrible for a woman of her station and reputation to still be referred to as a hysterical woman. Brett Kavanaugh was never called hysterical by the right, not even when he was objectively and publicly acting hysterically. People like him and even Trump, according to them, just have totally reasonable responses to being constantly targeted by the radical left or whoever. But to that point, the Republicans have built an entire fan base. I don't even want to call it a political faction at this point, off of being the victim. You hit the nail on the head when you said that they live in a constant state of victimhood. They have managed to convince swaths of straight white men across the country that they are the most oppressed demographic in this country somehow, while holding an inordinate amount of power across both our government and business sectors. And obviously that includes Trump. And, in my own personal naivete, I always assume that people want to get to a place of inner peace, a place where you're not angry all the time or fearful regarding the overall forces in your lives, whether that's the government or whatever. But in reality, fear and anger, they fuel victimhood, and victimhood can be strangely empowering. And at least for a political party like the Republican Party, that victimhood is what's going to empower them at the polls. That's what's going to get these people who now feel like they're helpless and all they can do is vote. That's what's going to get them there in November.
Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.